Doctor,
not leaving
subject
me again.
264
You
is
belong to me.
insisting on seeing you.
Let
The
go.
assistant looked disheveled.
cannot stay here.
Subject 264 was too difficult to handle. Only the doctor could stop him. I nodded and calmly injected the blue reagent into my arm. Okay, I see. A small water ball gathered in my palm. I was a little excited. The reagent was successful. The reagent was finally successful. I was overjoyed inside, but with a cold face on the surface. I followed the assistant to the room of Subject 264. Subject 264 was a zombie I had captured. He was very different from ordinary zombies. His body was not decayed. His pupils were blue, and he was so beautiful that it was hard to tell his gender. If it weren't for the excessive zombie virus in his body, he would be just like a normal person. More importantly, I found that the serum of Subject 264 could enhance superpowers. The more excited Subject 264 was, the stronger the ability of the serum to enhance superpowers. I pushed open the door. Subject 264 jumped up from the bed, threw himself into my arms, and rubbed against me like a little pet. He mumbled incoherently. He was a head taller than me, but it didn't seem out of place for him to nestle in my arms. I stroked his back and forth like comforting a big dog and said, 264, why didn't you listen to the doctor carefully today? Subject 264 looked at me aggrievedly with tears in his eyes. Henry, it hurts. No one could resist a beautiful person crying, especially me, a normal person. My eyes darkened slightly, and I said in an unusually gentle tone, be good. Don't call me by my name in the future. Call me doctor. Then I touched the needle hole on his arm. The serum hadn't been drawn today. I stroked his extremely soft head, kissed his lips, and asked seductively, do you want it? Number 264's eyes lit up. He jumped off me, pushed the assistant behind me out, and said with a vicious look on his face, get out, after driving away the irrelevant person. No, 264 pulled my wrist and kissed my knuckles, saying, I want Henry. I let him do what he wanted. His slightly cool body was pressed against mine. I was thinking about why a human being's body temperature was even lower than that of a zombie. Before I could finish thinking, number 264 bit my lips. He was dissatisfied with my distraction and said, Henry, be serious. The word serious brought my thoughts back. At this moment, I just wanted to abandon the annoyance of the experiment and the huge responsibility and fall into a state of happiness and carefreeness. In the end, I gasped and took out a syringe from the bedside. I raised my bright red eyebrows and looked at No. 264. No. 264 looked satisfied and obediently stretched out his arm. With a trembling hand, I drew a full syringe of No. 264's blood and put it into the freezer on the bedside table. Looking at the blue blood inside, I casually said, I heard that zombie blood is graded by color. Green is the lowest grade, and blue should belong to the zombie king. Are you the zombie king? Number 264. No. 264's face after the intimacy was charming and alluring. Like a goblin. At this moment, the goblin looked puzzled and said, Henry, what are you talking about? What zombie king? I also thought my idea was ridiculous. How could he be the zombie king? If No. 264 were the zombie king, how could he let himself be obediently drawn for blood and be an experimental subject? What could he possibly gain from it? Could it be me? As soon as this thought came up, I burst out laughing, with a bright smile on my face. Number 264's eyes lit up. He pushed me down. In a daze, I thought that indeed one shouldn't have too much sex, as my head was full of naive thoughts. That syringe of No. 264's blood provided essential help for my experiment. Looking at the large tank full of water, I smiled. This was the first time my weak supernatural power had been so useful. No. 264's serum was very useful. The future of humanity was saved. I told this news to the leader of the base. The leader was extremely shocked when he heard it. Immediately, he asked his subordinate to inject a tube of the extracted serum. Sure enough, the subordinate's supernatural ability became stronger. The boss approved a bunch of materials and asked me to make more serum. I looked at the joy and hope on the faces of those who had injected the serum, and then looked at the rising sun in the east. A new day is coming, and the hope of mankind is coming. That night, the base held a grand party. As the hero, I was forced to drink a lot of wine. Wine was very rare in the apocalypse, so I felt embarrassed to decline when others offered me a toast. After a few glasses, I used the excuse of going to the laboratory and quietly slipped away. Being really bad at drinking, I staggered around the base and saw a happy family of 3 sitting on the bench. Hello, doctor. The 2 adults greeted me, and the child also babbled along. Bashi Hao. The child was very cute. I rummaged through my pocket and gave him the candy in it. He showed 2 little teeth and smiled happily. After saying goodbye to them, I thought of number 264. That piece of candy just now was no. 264's. He liked to eat candy. Every time he had a physical examination, he needed a kiss and a piece of candy to be coaxed. Thinking of this, I smiled and decided to give no. 264 a name. What should I call him? Thinking as I walked, I unexpectedly walked outside the base before I knew it. Just as I was about to contact someone to pick me up, I heard a conversation not far away. The voice was very familiar. I tiptoed in the direction of the sound. A familiar figure came into my sight. Number 264, whom I had been thinking about, stood there coldly and nobly, and said in a cold voice, "Let it go to them. Don't fight with those supernaturals." Kneeling in front of no. 264 were a large group of zombies with fierce looks, but they were respectful and obedient towards no. 264. My brain, numbed by alcohol, didn't have time to think, and the words just came out no. 264. What are you doing? I clearly saw that no. 264's expression was a bit stiff. Before I could continue speaking, he rushed towards me all of a sudden. "Gee, Henry." I looked up in his arms, with a flushed face, and repeated the previous question. What were you doing just now? No. 264 suddenly leaned close to my lips and sniffed like a puppy. "Henry, have you been drinking?" I nodded. He asked again, "Goo, Song, are you drunk?" I shook my head. I wasn't drunk. I can hold my liquor. No. 264 looked at me and smiled, which was even more dazzling than the moon above his head. I was so fascinated that I stared blankly and smiled. I reached out and touched no. 264's face and asked again, "No." 264. What were you doing just now? No. 264 seemed to have never expected that I would be so persistent about this question after getting drunk. He tucked me further into his arms, leaned close to my ear, and said in a deep voice without a single pause, "Henry, you got drunk and went back to the laboratory to sleep with no." 264. You didn't see anyone. I was attracted by those pair of eyes as blue as the sea. My mind went blank. I stupidly repeated after no. 264. I got drunk and went back to the laboratory to sleep with no. 264. I didn't see anyone. No. 264 gave me an appreciative look, kissed the corner of my mouth, and let out a charming and sexy laugh. "Good boy. You're right." After hearing this, I only felt drowsiness coming over me. It was as if my whole body was being pulled into a bottomless abyss. It was dark all around, and I couldn't scream out no matter how hard I tried. Don't, it's too dark here. Don't." With my scream, I woke up from the nightmare, looking at no. 264 lying on the edge of the bed, looking at me worriedly. I rubbed my throbbing head and asked, "Ouch, why am I here?" No. 264 jumped onto the bed, straddled me, and clung to my shoulders, saying in a coquettish voice, "Gee, Goo, Song got drunk and came to no." 264. No. 264 slept with Goo Song. I pieced together the truth from his stuttering words. I got drunk and came to the laboratory to sleep with 264. No. What on earth was I doing when I was drunk? Harassing a young boy in the middle of the night? I held down 264's wriggling body inside. "Sorry, I disturbed you last night." 264 looked shy, with the tips of his ears red, and said, It's okay. I also like to sleep with Gusong." I didn't want to correct his habit of calling me by my full name anymore. I gently patted his head, signaling him to get off me. 264 carefully observed my expression, pouted discontentedly, and reluctantly rolled to the inside of the bed. His beautiful blue eyes stared directly at me while I was changing clothes. The sound of my Adam's apple rolling was especially obvious in the quiet and empty room. After I fastened the cufflinks on my lab coat, I heard a noise and turned to look at 264. "Are you hungry? Didn't the person in charge send the injection this morning?" 264 shook his head, suddenly pulled the quilt over his head, and his muffled voice came from under the quilt. "No, I've already eaten." I nodded and slightly pursed my lips. "I haven't eaten yet. I'll never drink again. You have a good rest. I'm leaving first." After saying this, I lifted my leg and was about to walk out. No. 264 rushed to the edge of the bed, tightly grabbed the corner of my clothes, and carefully asked, "Gusong, will you come again tonight?" I know zombies lack a sense of security. On the first day he was brought back to the base, he hugged the quilt and came to the laboratory to find me, crying, looking at that extremely beautiful face like an angel. I couldn't bear to refuse. I just stroked his head. I gently said that it depends on the progress of the experiment. He has poor thinking ability and can't tell the euphemistic rejection in my words. He just smiled happily. His canine teeth are cute and very sharp. The tooth mark on my neck hasn't faded yet. After sitting on the chair for another day, I supported my aching waist and slowly straightened up, letting out a sigh of admiration at the setting sun outside the window. The world is still very beautiful. Make one more effort to let more people see such a beautiful world. When I was holding the reagent and preparing for the last purification of the day, the door of the laboratory was pushed open. The person who came was Liam. We grew up together, and our parents were also close friends. When the end times came, my parents and his parents died on the way to the base. Since then, only the two of us have depended on each other. Later, he joined the base with his powerful fire-type ability, and I joined the base with my identity as a pharmacy doctor. Liam carelessly swept a cattail grass back and forth on my face. With an improper tone, "Yo, is our ice beauty ticklish?" I swatted the mischievous grass away and continued with my experiment. With a calm but familiar tone, I asked, "How did the negotiation with the base in Country M go this time?" Liam pouted and naturally took something to eat from my pocket. "Tisk, Henry, you still haven't changed your habit of eating snacks." With a steady heart and hands, I successfully purified the serum. Looking at the reagent that only contained 20% of the serum, I stuck a needle into the hand where Liam was holding the candy. Liam pretended to let out a wail, stuffed the candy into his mouth with the other hand, and ruffled my hair wildly. "Henry, you're trying to murder me. It hurts like hell." I calmly pushed his hand away, tidied my hair, took out the cigarette case from his pocket, took out a cigarette, put it in my mouth, and raised my eyebrows as a signal. "Light it up." Oh. Liam came to his senses. With a gentle twist of his fingertips, a small flame suddenly sprang up. He exclaimed in surprise, "My ability has strengthened." I gave a soft, "It's the result of my research these days." The faint smoke rose, blurring my eyebrows and eyes. Looking at the beauty of the setting sun, neither Liam nor I said a word. Just when I was enjoying the silence, Liam asked softly, "I heard you brought back a special zombie and have a rather close relationship with it." I nodded and pointed to the needle hole on his arm. "His blood is very useful." Liam's hand touched the tooth mark on my neck, and his voice sounded strange. "Did he bite you?" I gently brushed away his hand and gave him a surprised look. "What's wrong?" He withdrew his hand, clenched his fists, and said in a voice suppressing anger, "Don't you know that everyone in the whole base knows that you've slept with a zombie?" I nodded. Of course I knew. How could I not know? On the day of the celebration party, when I passed by the door, I heard their discussion. Henry is really in the limelight. The boss dotes on him, and even Liam is like a dog beside him. What a show-off. I think he's just a slut. I heard from the people in the laboratory that he sleeps with that zombie every night. Ugh, how disgusting. Sleeping with a dead man. Yeah, if he's really that desperate, come to me. I'll satisfy him. Those words were like needles, piercing me all over. Liam's eyes were bloodshot. He held my shoulders. "Henry, stop the experiment. We can still succeed without the zombie's blood. So what if we lose our superpowers? I can still defeat the zombies. I'll lead humanity to a new world. Suspend the experiment and get rid of that zombie." I shook my head. "You can't do without superpowers. If you lose them, humanity is completely finished." "Henry." Liam punched the laboratory bench behind me. The flasks and test tubes were shaken and fell down with a clatter. The sound of the glass falling was both pleasant and harsh. "What are the super-powered people you've sacrificed yourself to protect doing? Do you think they'll be grateful to you? No, they won't remember your kindness. They're gossiping about you, insulting you, lusting after you. You've become the topic of conversation in their boring and dark lives." I threw the burnt cigarette butt into the trash can and handed a piece of paper to Liam. "I know, but there are also people who are eager to see tomorrow working hard. What does it matter if I sacrifice myself? If sacrificing me can save humanity and the whole world, I think it's an honor, a supreme honor." Liam looked at me deeply and was extremely helpless. "You're just like Uncle Goo and Aunt Goo. My parents were also researchers. On the way to the base, in order to protect an experiment report, they finally lost their lives at the hands of mutant plants. Before they died, they placed on me the heavy burden of researching to eliminate the zombie virus and leading people towards the light. I didn't want to do it, but they swore with their own flesh and blood that if I failed to achieve it, I would be crushed to pieces and have no place to rest in death. There would be no afterlife. Yes, the experimenters were also a bit superstitious. They had great love for the world, and only great love. After that day, Liam locked himself in the training room and practiced crazily. Passing by there, one would be roasted unbearably. Really don't know what the people inside are thinking. I glanced in the direction of the training room, with my mind blank. No. 264 pulled me into his arms, kissed my forehead, and asked in confusion, "Gu Song, why have you been in a bad mood these days?" I didn't say a word and burrowed deeper into No. 264's arms. I was extremely sleepy and said, "Number 264, if one day humanity wins, let's find a secluded paradise to live in together." Number 264 nodded, his eyes shining. "Really? Just me and Henry?" I nodded because being alone was too lonely. So what if he was a zombie? No. 264's straightforward, passionate, and simple love was as fierce as a prairie fire. There was already a small flame in my dead and desolate heart. "Let me give you a name," I said softly as I tugged at No. 264's lustrous blonde hair. No. 264 became even more excited. It was like celebrating the new year all day. "Really? I want a name that's intimate with Gu Song. A couple's name?" I thought carefully in my mind for a moment and said, "William." That was the name my mother had for my future younger brother. It's a pity that he never got to see this beautiful world and was buried underground. William, caring for the world and behaving like a gentleman. No. 264 puffed out his cheeks discontentedly and said, "Gu Song, I'm not your younger brother." I smiled and said, "Of course not. You're William, the unique William." Number 264 laughed, looking very happy. The yellowish-brown color of the sky outside the base was about to fade away. It seemed that everything was moving in a good direction. The effectiveness of the reagent was getting stronger and stronger. It was easy for humans to fight against low-level zombies. Even for high-level zombies, 2 or 3 people could easily defeat them together. Just like this, the situation where humans were besieged by zombies and the future was worrying had a big reversal. The territory was gradually being taken back, and the resources were becoming more and more abundant. A new base that led people towards a glorious future was successfully established. It was called the New City. A new hope, a new future, a new world. Thanks to Dr. Henry this time, we can have a visible future. The boss sat at the head of the table and said gratefully, "Yes, thanks to Dr. Gu. If it weren't for Dr. Gu, we would. Well, let's not mention the past. Let's only look at the future. Come, let's toast to the doctor." "To the doctor," the others echoed. I sat below the boss. Liam beside me looked at me with a smile and raised his glass to signal. Everyone raised their glasses, with gratitude in their eyes. At the celebration party for the establishment of the new city, the first glass of wine was toasted to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of the stiff smile on the boss's lips. I smiled faintly and raised my glass. "Drink." That night, I got dead drunk. The alcohol numbed my nerves. I was still a bit dazed when someone forcefully dragged me out of bed. "What are you guys doing?" Those people didn't say a word. They just dragged me up and took me all the way to the center of the new city. There were crowds of people gathered there. Their expressions were very complicated, with nervousness, disdain, excitement, disgust. When I was forced to kneel on the ground by them, I was still in a state of confusion. I looked up at the boss sitting at the head, extremely confused. What on earth is going on here? The boss let out a bitter laugh and avoided my gaze. Daniel beside him spoke up. Daniel had always disliked me, and he was also the one who led the way in saying those unpleasant things that night. "Henry, was it you who let the zombies in the laboratory escape?" I was stunned. "Number 264 escaped?" Daniel smiled. "Stop pretending. Henry, do you think we don't know what's going on between you and that zombie? You let it escape," which attracted a large group of Class A zombies to seek revenge. "In just a few hours last night, we've already lost nearly 100 people. And these," Daniel choked with sobs, his eyes filled with tears. "And most of these people are the families of the superpowered. They are ordinary people without any means of defense. How innocent they are." I understood what was going on and sorted it out in my mind. He just couldn't hold his temper and took action now. I looked at the boss sitting at the head, covering his face in grief, and calmly said, "I didn't do these things. I didn't let number 264 escape either. Moreover, I believe everyone present here knows exactly why those things happened between me and No. 264. I stood up, patted the dust off my knees, and turned my head to look at the crowd below. I believe you all know what kind of person I am. But at this moment, everyone refused to meet my eyes. They shifted their gazes guiltily, like passers-by just looking for a show. Daniel wiped away his tears and questioned, "Henry, considering your contributions to building the new city, we decide to expel you from the new city as a way to offset your mistakes. This can also give an explanation to those who lost their family members. Are you satisfied with this result? I sneered and looked sharply at Daniel. I have no mistakes. Why should I offset non-existent mistakes with my merits? The boss sighed. Henry, this is the best result we've come up with for you. This is all I can do. I looked at the boss and said softly, people's jealousy often overflows, and the year-end celebration makes it even worse. I want to see Liam. I don't think I'm guilty. Daniel snorted. Liam has gone to search for supplies and is not at the base. Henry, it won't do you any good to keep stalling like this. As soon as Daniel finished speaking, the crowd below spoke up. I want the culprit to pay with his life for my grandson. Yes, pay with his life. An eye for an eye. The 4 words, an eye for an eye, reached my ears and went straight to my heart through my blood vessels. At that moment, I seemed to lose the sense of my own breathing. All I could see were people raising their arms and shouting, with faces full of pain and hatred. My vital energy gradually dissipated in the sunlight, and I felt dizzy. All I could see were angry faces. In the corner, a young child shouted angrily, "The doctor is a good person," but soon, an adult covered his mouth and carried him away. I watched the child angrily trying to break free from the adult's hand. Unfortunately, he was too weak. He could only struggle and whine with anger in his eyes. I closed my eyes, then looked at those people tiredly. My voice as wispy as a gust of wind that could dissipate at any moment. I'll leave the new city. This sentence was like a magical needle that stilled the sea, and the crowd fell silent. They seemed to feel a bit of guilt again and covered their faces to cry. Doctor, we know you're a good person. Without you, we wouldn't have a new home. But my son was only 3 years old. The zombies stuffed him into their mouths one by one. The crisp sound of his skull breaking and his desperate cries will be my lifelong nightmare. I smiled. You can't bear the surging resentment and shadow, so you can only transfer them. It doesn't matter whether that person is the real culprit or not. As long as they can take on your resentment and shadow, it doesn't matter who it is. Even if he is very innocent, even if this unwarranted charge is full of doubts, you don't care, as long as it's a person. The gates of the new city slowly closed behind me, and the couplets I wrote with my own hands at the entrance were peeled off by the strong wind. They floated towards an unknown distance. I picked up the bag that had been thrown at my feet, looked at the setting sun, and blew the bone flute. It was given to me by William. Henry, here you are. When you miss me, just blow it and I'll come. The harsh and unpleasant sound of the flute flowed into the distance with the wind. The sun had completely set, and the person I wanted to see didn't come. Just as I was rolling the dice and about to walk in a random direction, the ground under my feet began to vibrate slightly, and then the amplitude got bigger and bigger. The dead trees around me fell one by one. In front of me, a gust of sand and dust rose up. A familiar and tall figure gradually became clear from being blurred. It's William, and behind him are a zombie army with strange postures and green, glowing eyes. William's slightly long blonde hair fluttered wildly in the wind, and his blue eyes were overflowing with tenderness. Baby, I'm late. I tightened my hand holding the bone flute, squinted my eyes, and said in an unfriendly tone, "Hello, do we know each other?" The leader, who was full of domineering just a second ago, pounced on me the next second, rubbing against my neck like a wronged big dog. "Baby, I'm sorry. I'm late. It's all Jack's fault. He took the wrong way." I pushed him away forcefully. He squatted on the ground in a sorry state without any defense, and his beautiful face was full of disbelief. The sand stuck to his body. I took a few steps back in disgust. "It's so dirty." William was even more incredulous, and his eyes widened. "Baby, I'm not dirty. I took a bath before coming today." William got up in a hurry and hugged me tightly, pressing my head against his chest. "Smell it. I'm really not dirty." I tried to raise my head and gave an embarrassed smile to the zombies looking at us curiously. Seeing that my attention was diverted, William gave a fierce look at the zombies behind him and said, "Turn around. I'll dig out the eyes of whoever looks." A group of zombies that terrified humans now turned around aggrievedly, muttering. This muttering was the most prominent and the loudest. "Do zombies have an independent language system?" I frowned and asked, "What did he say?" William kissed the tip of my nose and shook his head obediently. "I don't know. Baby, I really don't know." Seeing that William's emotions didn't seem fake, I let go of the hand pinching his face. "I'll settle the score with you later." Hearing the word later, William stared blankly and smiled. Before he could say anything, the arm around me suddenly tightened. He looked at my back with a vicious look in his eyes. "Dr. Gu, we're not wronging you." There was a hint of triumph and disdain in Daniel's tone. Then more noisy voices rang out, sighing that the boss and Daniel had foresight. I patted William's hand, signaling him to loosen his grip. Then I turned around to face them, seeing the dagger Daniel was playing with. My heart skipped a beat. How did you get this? Daniel grinned and said regretfully, Liam's third squad was attacked by mutant animals. This was brought back by the only survivor. It can be used to build a cenotaph later. The bright red blood dripped onto the sand. The porcelain white bone flute was stained with blood, emitting a strange cold light. I stared intently at Daniel's neck, looking for a chance to strike a fatal blow. Just as I was about to draw my knife and take action, William lifted my hand. The moist and soft touch licked across the wound on my palm until it healed. William easily crushed the bone flute into powder. The words I hadn't spoken to stop him were stuck in my throat. William pinched my face with a cold look, and his voice was completely different from his usual well-behaved one, with gloom and chill. He said, baby, I don't want you to be hurt by anything other than me. No scoundrels are allowed. Daniel looked at this scene with disgust and taunted. A bitch and a dog. Perfect match. Before Daniel could finish his disgusting words, he was suddenly suspended in mid-air. Then his arm began to rotate in the opposite direction in a way that was difficult to explain physically, until the whole arm fell off. Daniel's screams and struggles made his blood rush to his head. The moment the arm fell, the blood splashed on the sycophants behind him. The moment it dripped, it began to corrode the contacted skin extremely quickly like sulfuric acid. Instantly, there were screams and wails all over the opposite side. It resounded through the sky. Then it gradually returned to calm and loneliness. Looking at this scene, the anger and resentment in my heart dissipated a little. I complained, why make it so bloody? It stinks horribly. William gave me a strange look, and then excitement appeared on his face. Baby, were you just acting coquettishly? I roughly threw my bag on William's head and picked up the knife in the severed arm on the ground. The familiar handle of the knife with childish graffiti on it. I held the knife even tighter. I took a few steps to Daniel hanging in mid-air and stabbed the knife into his calf. I pulled it down hard, and Daniel crashed into the sand. I stepped firmly on his calf where I had inserted the knife. The knife went deeper, and more blood flowed. Before long, the sand beneath Daniel was dyed a deep red. I looked down at him from above. The newly risen red moon hung above my head. Daniel, what happened to Liam's third squad? Daniel didn't answer. He held back all the pain in his throat and pleaded in a hoarse voice. I'm sorry, Dr. Gu. I'm really sorry. Liam's accident really wasn't my doing. It really wasn't. I impatiently clicked my tongue, pulled out my dagger, and stepped on his neck. As the oxygen decreased, Daniel opened his mouth. I held the dagger high and aimed it at his throat. I'll ask one more time. What happened to Liam's third squad? Daniel whimpered for a long time. When he saw the ferocity and anger between my eyebrows, he finally got scared. A stench spread. He stammered. Liam's death was because of the old, Before he could finish his sentence, a small black hole appeared on top of Daniel's head, white mixed with red, oozing out in small streams. Daniel was dead, his eyes wide open but devoid of any sparkle. I looked up. The boss was standing right in front of me with a sniper rifle in his hand. He was still very amiable, like a nice uncle from the neighborhood. Henry, it's my fault that I didn't discipline Daniel well. Please don't take it to heart. If you don't want to leave the new city, you can stay here. After all, you've made great contributions to the construction of the new city. I didn't say a word. I took the paper William handed me and wiped the knife clean. It shouldn't be. Liam's knife shouldn't have been stained with such dirty things. I wiped it repeatedly. My elder brother's knife shouldn't have been contaminated with these dirty things. William was jealous of Liam, but this wasn't the time to lose his temper. He licked his teeth irritably and thought to himself, when everything was over, he was going to have a wild 3-day and 3-night session with his darling. Oh no, it should be 7 days and 7 nights. Boss, let's just be straightforward. I don't care that you've gone to great lengths to drive me out of the base. But you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have touched Liam. When I said this sentence, I felt that every cell in my body was screaming for blood. To avenge Liam. Henry, you still love eating candies so much. I'm confiscating them. No more candies for you. My mom told me this in a dream. She said Henry is the most disobedient and asked me to discipline you well. Henry, when the zombies are completely gone, let's go to Olivia's hometown and live a hermit's life. Henry, don't worry. Big Brother will protect you. Even if Big Brother dies, I won't let a single hair on our Henry be harmed. My only relatives are gone. All gone. I looked up and stared at the boss like he was a dead thing. Suddenly, I smiled and said, when we first entered the base, Liam said you were narrow-minded. I didn't believe it. How could a narrow-minded person take in so many women, children and the elderly? The boss was stunned for a moment. Then, hearing the continuous footsteps behind him, He suddenly knelt on the ground and crawled painfully towards Daniel little by little. He hugged Daniel's body in his arms and wailed, "Oliver, how could it come to this? Henry, how could you bear it? Oliver he's your comrade, in arms through thick and thin." The people who arrived late looked at the scene in front of them and then at me standing in front of the zombies. In an instant, anger and disgust crossed their faces. "I've always said we shouldn't have kept Henry. Boss and Daniel were just too kind." After a burly, superpowered person finished speaking, he glared at me resentfully and said, "Henry, we've already forgiven you for letting the zombies in and causing trouble, but now you've actually killed your comrades and relatives. We can't keep you anymore. Don't blame us for being heartless." Before I could even smile, William laughed first. He stopped being obedient and well-behaved in front of me. His look towards the superpowered person was full of contempt, as if he were looking at trash. "Being heartless? I'm really curious how you're going to be heartless." The burly man saw that William looked similar to a human and thought he was another lover of Henry. He became even more disdainful and said, "Who do you think you are? It's not your turn to butt in." I looked at the burly man in surprise and felt a bit sad for him. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, his limbs instantly fell off. He became a living human pig. I watched him open his mouth and whimper but couldn't make a sound. I looked at William with a complicated expression. "Why on earth did you pretend to be that way and come to me?" This change happened so suddenly that no one had time to react, and the burly man was already reduced to a state of just gasping. In an instant, the superpowered people all took a step back. They were all full of panic. When a powerful person faces someone 100 times more powerful, their body will instinctively show a reaction of fear. The boss also didn't expect this scene, and his eyes were full of shock. "What on earth is going on?" William didn't reply. He disdained to talk to a dying man, thinking it would bring bad luck. "Honey, come back to the castle with me later. There are full of the Banksia roses you like in it." I didn't understand why William changed the topic. Before I could ask, there came the sound of uniform footsteps behind me. I turned around. The zombies, who originally had strange postures and were all over the place, all straightened their bodies, looked straight ahead with determined looks in their eyes. I slapped William hard and said, "What are you doing?" William didn't reply. He picked me up with one hand. My stomach was pressed against his shoulder, which made me a little uncomfortable. "Guys, raise the new city tonight and avenge your sister-in-law." Hey. This is the roar of the zombies when they are extremely excited. The roars resounded through the sky, and the group grew larger and larger. Under the illumination of the red moon, it was out of sight at a glance. These are a group of well-trained Class A zombies. It's enough to flatten the entire new city. A creepy feeling quietly climbed into the hearts of every superpowered person present. The smell of death and decay gradually permeated the air. "They're finished." I looked at the dense mass of zombies and firmly grabbed William's hair. "No, make them all go back. William, do you hear me? There are many innocent people in the new city. We can't do that." William didn't feel pain, but still put me down. He looked at me gloomily. "Henry, I usually keep my word. I won't allow anyone other than me to hurt you. The people in the new city are indeed innocent, but when they silently agreed to your expulsion from the new city, they were all executioners in the dark. What would happen to a defenseless researcher being driven out of the base? Mutated plants and animals, hungry zombie hordes. You would die a horrible death and finally be eaten up to the bone. So they're not innocent. Not at all in my eyes. William is right. No one is innocent. I'm not innocent either. I knew William's identity. I was taking a gamble, betting on whether the vow of that bone flute would come true. Fortunately, I won the bet, but I also lost it. My only relative has also left, but every wrong has its perpetrator, and innocent people should not be involved. I placed my hands on William's arms and used my lips to stop William from speaking. William sensed my intention and irritably bit my lips. Then he licked them tenderly and remorsefully and delved deeper, occupying territory and leaving marks. After the kiss ended, William's complexion looked a bit better, with dissatisfaction from not having enough and a bit of annoyance from losing face. "Go back and wash up and go to sleep. We'll raise the new city another day." Roar. It was the roar of the zombies at the peak of their dissatisfaction. Seeing this dramatic scene, the boss slightly wiped the cold sweat oozing from his forehead and called me to stop. "Henry, what on earth is going on? Who exactly is this friend of yours?" I said calmly, "This is the No. 264 you said I let go." The boss obviously didn't believe it. How could an experiment subject at others' mercy command such a powerful zombie army? This person must be extraordinary. He has blonde hair and blue eyes. and his behavior is not much different from that of a normal person. He can also command the zombie army. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the boss's pale face clearly. All that could be seen was his look of utter disbelief as he mouthed 3 words. Zombie King. I neither confirmed nor denied it. I just said, 3 days later. I hope the boss can give me a reasonable explanation for why Liam's 3rd squad was attacked. I was carried away by William, followed by a vast army of zombies behind me. We stopped in front of a castle that covered a huge area and was extremely luxuriously decorated. I was shocked. Is this the castle you mentioned? William looked at me nervously and said, Are you not satisfied? Otherwise, let's change to another one. This is the best house in my family. Are there still rich 2nd generations in the end times? Hurry up and go in. William nodded, like a big dog wagging its tail after being praised. The exterior of the castle was already shocking enough, but unexpectedly, the inside was incredibly luxurious. I held a pure gold teacup in my hand, sipping the fragrant milk. Looking at William, who was bustling around to fetch things for me, I squinted my eyes and called him to stop. William, come here. William responded and sat down next to me. What's wrong? Baby? Isn't the milk good? It can't be. I caught a group of mutant cows to breed a normal one. I shook my head and gulped down the remaining milk in the cup, then put down the extremely heavy cup in my hand, letting out a breath. I asked, Why were you caught by the laboratory back then? William's ears turned red, and he said awkwardly, Jack said that you humans wouldn't accept us zombies, and told me to pretend to be pitiful and get close to you little by little. Then I deliberately let you catch me. My doubts grew even bigger. I didn't know William at all, and I stayed in the laboratory for a long time. Why did William take a fancy to me? And he was so scheming. In order to stay by my side, he let people conduct research on him. Why? William's face also blushed, but he stared straight at me and said, I like you, Henry. I did all this because I like you. I was caught off guard by this confession and stammered for the first time. I know, but before the laboratory, did we have any intersection? William glanced at me and said somewhat dissatisfiedly, No, it would be great if I had known Henry earlier. It would be best to have known each other since birth. Then I would have seen all of Henry's looks. I was choked by his logic again and asked, Then why do you like me? William said seriously, Why can't I like you? You're beautiful and kind. I got aroused the first time I saw you. After that, you appeared in my dreams every night. And I leaned over and covered William's unfiltered mouth. For the first time, I felt ashamed and said, Stop talking. William let me cover his mouth. His fingers stroked my earlobe, which was red as if bleeding. There was a strong desire in his eyes, and he stuck out his tongue and gently licked my palm. It was itchy and wet. I was so frightened that I quickly withdrew my hand, coughed lightly, and changed the topic. Why did you become the Zombie King? And how did you manage to kill people from a distance? William didn't answer my question. He just picked me up forcefully and walked upstairs. I don't like to talk about my affairs beforehand. Baby, I'll tell you everything in detail after we're done. I nestled sleepily in William's arms. His slightly deep and excited voice rang in my ear. He slowly told me about his affairs. William's family was one of the wealthiest families before the end of the world. As the youngest child in the family, he was very much loved. However, being the family heir requires not only love but also absolute strength to have the final say. William finally became the family's ruler with his extremely high IQ and cold-blooded methods. Unexpectedly, on the 2nd day after he took power, the end of the world came, and the zombie outbreak occurred. He was among the first batch of people infected with the virus and at the same time awakened the supernatural power that only normal people have. Mental-type supernatural power. So, with his abilities and intelligence, the position of the Zombie King was within easy reach. Hearing this, I was extremely dissatisfied. A noble young master before the apocalypse, and the Zombie King above all others after the apocalypse. William noticed my dissatisfaction and kissed the corner of my lips, saying, Baby, everything I have is yours. I closed my eyes and let him linger, the corners of my eyes slightly curving. The 3-day period had ended, and I stepped into the new city again. The boss still sat in the chief's seat, but this time, neither I nor Liam would ever be sitting in the lower seats again. Henry, Liam's incident was really just an accident. You know, it's the apocalypse now, and danger is common. I was very sad when I found out. The boss still couldn't take off his hypocritical mask. I looked at the floating tea leaves in the chipped teacup and didn't even have the desire to drink. William, sitting close to me, was always watching me. Seeing this, he smiled. Baby, once you get used to everything I give you, You'll never be able to leave me. Unfortunately, all my attention was on the boss, and I didn't notice the beast beside me. Whether it was an accident or not, we both know in our hearts. If you explain it now, I'll only come after you. If I find out the truth and explain it, you, the boss, will be disgraced and spurned by everyone. As soon as the words disgraced came out, the boss suddenly tightened his grip on the teacup. Henry, I don't know why you insist that I harmed Liam. I didn't do it, and that's that. The boss said this so pitifully that the other ability users couldn't stand it anymore. Henry, what exactly do you mean? It's already been said that Liam's death was an accident. What on earth do you want? Yeah, do you think I'll be scared of you just because you've brought a zombie king to back you up? What a joke. If you dare to lay a finger on our boss today, I'll fight you to the death. When William saw someone mention him, he gently placed the cup in his hand on the table. The ability user who had just spoken harsh words was startled. Looking at those clowns, I waved outside the house and said, "Come in." A woman in ragged clothes and a crazy appearance was pushed in. I clearly saw that the boss's hand tightened even more. I smiled. The good show was about to begin. Ava? Ava is a well-known crazy woman in the base and also a symbol of the boss's kindness. After all, in a base that even takes in a crazy person, the boss must be very kind. When Ava entered the room and saw the boss sitting at the head of the table, her expression suddenly became terrified, and she struggled to run outside. Ava, I called out softly. At the sound of Ava, Ava was soothed. She looked at me cautiously and said, "Levi? I don't know who this Levi is, but I know that our boss's surname is Meng. As for his given name, no one knows. He always asks us to call him boss." After Ava called out Levi, she shifted her gaze and saw the boss sitting at the head. She looked aggrieved and said, "Levi, why? Why did you beat me? I don't want to become a fool, or I won't be able to remember you." The boss smiled amiably and said, "Ava, no one beat you." Then he said to me, "Henry, what do you mean by this?" I didn't answer. Looking at Ava, I said gently, "Ava, do you miss Levi?" Ava shook her head and said, "No, because Levi accompanies me every day." I asked again, "How does he accompany you?" Ava took out a small recording pen, only the size of a thumb, from her chest and said proudly, "Here, Levi is here." I deliberately looked confused and said, "Huh?" I didn't hear him speaking. Ava glanced at me and said, "You're so stupid. Press this and you can hear Levi speaking." As the switch was pressed, after a rustling sound, a voice rang out. "That bitch Henry. Liam is really infatuated with her. It doesn't matter. When the base grows stronger, we'll get rid of them all." The whole place fell silent. William licked his teeth irritably. Just as he moved his finger, I pressed on it. Then the recorder continued to make a sound. It was a conversation between the boss and Daniel. The boss intended to let Daniel inherit his position, but I and Liam were a big threat, so he gradually induced Daniel to bear a grudge against me and Liam. Finally, at the celebration party, the boss couldn't hold it back anymore. Daniel let the No. 264 experimental subject go and deliberately led the Class A zombies into the new city. That night, all the superpower users were at the celebration party. Those who died were just the helpless family members of the superpower users. In this way, not only was a blame put on me, but also my prestige in the base completely disappeared. Finally, by diverting Liam away, I was successfully driven out of the base. After listening, the people present had complex expressions, mixed with disbelief. "Boss, it was all you're doing, right?" The boss didn't say a word. Instead, he looked at me and said, "Henry, you're really something." I smiled and said, "I can't compare to James. He staged such a play." At this point, the boss stopped pretending, and the silenced pistol smoked. The several superpower users present, like Daniel, died with their eyes wide open. "Henry, what do you want to do?" I said, "How did Liam die?" The boss put down the cup in his hand and said, "Liam's matter really has nothing to do with me. I couldn't kill him. There was a traitor in their team." I asked, "Who is it?" The boss shook his head and said, "I don't know. I wasn't at the scene." I nodded and said, "I believe you." "Oh, right. I forgot to tell you that Ava isn't crazy. The content of the zombie virus in her body is higher than that of ordinary zombies, and there is no damage to her brain. More importantly, she came to me on her own initiative." After saying that, I stood up, and William also followed me out. The door of the small meeting room slowly closed. In that gradually narrowing gap, the crazy Ava had a big smile on her lips. She tied up her hair and smiled at me. "Thank you." Then, the door closed completely, and a shrill scream sounded, which was very unpleasant. William covered my ears and said, "It's so noisy. It's like a pig being slaughtered." I smiled, and then the smile on my lips gradually faded. I said, "William, I'm going to find Liam. He isn't dead. William kissed my lips and took a deep breath. He said, "Go. I'll follow you wherever you go." Really? Really? We left the new city. Just as the gate was about to close, a little boy ran out. "Doctor." I heard the childish call and turned around. The child's face was bright red. She handed me a piece of candy and said, "Doctor, I will definitely become as great and excellent as you when I grow up." William sneered, snatched the candy and stuffed it into his own mouth. When the child was about to burst into tears, he pulled me and ran. "Kid, if you want to be like my wife, you'll have to wait until the next life." The sound of the wind in my ears was accompanied by William's arrogant laughter. I held William's hand that was pulling me back. This time, the sun didn't set. Even if it sets, it will still rise the next day. In the 27th century, humans signed an equal agreement with the leader of the zombies. They agreed not to interfere with each other and not to attack each other. Blue Star obtained temporary peace at the end of the world.